Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome back to the podcast, and today our guest is Mike Thomas with Lighthouse Insurance Services, and Mike has been serving his clients for 30 years now. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Gary. Nice to be here.
So tell us some about yourself and what made you pursue a career in insurance.
I'm sure much like many kids that have their dreams when they're 4 and 5 years old that they want to manage risk for forever, and that's their dream. Nobody wants to be a fireman or a professional basketball player anymore. They want to be an insurance agent. Actually, I wanted to be. I was going to be the left-handed Larry Bird, and when I was growing up, that was my dream. But I'm a lot shorter and can't nearly shoot like him. So I was actually going to go into go into accounting, and have my accounting degree, and worked for a Big Six accounting firm for a little over a year, and there was going to be an awful lot of travel involved with that, and I was looking for something else to kind of get involved with that still involved numbers, math, that side of things with business. And I looked into insurance. My dad was a life insurance agent, so I did some life insurance sales with him for about 4 or 5 years. And from there, I wanted to break out into learning the property and casualty side of the insurance world and keeping it in the family. My father-in-law had a small insurance agency, so I went and learned the property casualty side with him for another 4 or 5 years. And then at that point in 2000, I decided to go out on my own, start a scratch agency, where we do offer property and casualty, as well as the life insurance, and we've been running with that for 20 years now.
So, in this 20 years that you've been doing this on your own, what is it that you wish you knew when you started that you know now?
I think, well, the industry has certainly changed in those 20 years. We're seeing storms pop up that we didn't have years ago. We're seeing the number of cars on the road in today's age that we didn't have before. The number of distractions. We didn't have cell phones when I got into this industry. We're seeing several more distractions that are out there, especially for the young kids that are getting their license and learning how to drive. So I think there's just the opportunity presents itself for many more claims. We have a duty to learn both the rules, but as well as being able to stay out of accidents, anticipate maybe what's gonna happen in front of you. Just people need to take that extra time to get there safely. On the homeowner side of things, in the last 20 years, what we've seen is that homeowners insurance is a catastrophic policy. It's there for the major hazards that are out there. A tree falls on your house. There's a hurricane. There's a tornado. Something along those lines. That's what home insurance is for. It's not a maintenance policy where if maybe your roof needs to be replaced because it's 20 years old. That's not a homeowner's claim. Or if the deck that you haven't maintained properly is getting old because it hasn't received the care and attention that it should have had as far as warped boards or staining it every so often. That's not an insurance claim. It's strictly a maintenance, or it's not a maintenance policy, and it needs to be treated that way, I think.
So what are some of the questions that clients should be asking you when you're placing an insurance form that they're not asking you at this point?
I think a big aspect on the homeowner side, it starts with getting your insurance value at the proper level. There is a misnomer out there that if I pay $300,000 for my home, I should insure my home for $300,000. That's just not the case. A good insurance agent will take the time to learn the house that you are purchasing. They're going to get, is it one story? Is it two story? Is there a basement? What kind of bathrooms? Are they upgraded? Are they builder's grade? Are they custom? Same with the kitchen. Is there a wet bar in the home? What type of sprinklers? Are there sprinklers in the home, so that the square footage of the home, so that you find out what the actual replacement cost is for that property. If someone is willing to pay $300,000 to buy a home, that is as that home is sitting on the property and the land that it's on. An insurance company isn't going to insure the land. If the house, God forbid, burns to the ground, you're not going to replace or rebuild the land. The land's still going to be there. So I think finding the right dwelling coverage to protect what is it going to cost to rebuild your particular home, including taking away any debris that maybe needs to be removed, and also taking into consideration if it's an older home, making sure that if there is a major loss, that house is brought back according to the updated code and laws of the particular county that you're in. So that's probably the biggest foundation, is to start with the proper dwelling coverage, and then moving on from there to break down into the different endorsements and coverages that you should have within a homeowner's policy.
So, you brought up homeowners policies. So what are some of the things in homeowners policies that you really need to make sure that you have? What coverages are in there? Kind of what comes standard, what is something that's added on? Because you talked about the dwelling and stuff like that, but what about, all of my, family heirlooms that I have, and jewelry and things like that? Is that all covered under standard policy?
Great question, Gary. Generally, no, that is not going to be covered under a standard policy. You will have, most companies will give you about 70% of your dwelling coverage in what's called personal property content. So that's going to be your clothing, your furniture, your belongings. However, if you have those family heirlooms, if you have jewelry, as an example, if you have some fine instruments, musical instruments, if you have fine artwork, that sort, even silverware, that sort of content needs to be scheduled on your homeowner's policy. Generally, it's relatively inexpensive to do, but it is an additional cost. But it is a way of properly valuing it and making sure that if there is a loss, you're getting repaid for the replacement cost of that product versus actual retail or actual cost for that. It's a way of making sure that you're made whole. The insurance company's job is to make you whole again. As 3 seconds before a claim occurs, the insurance company wants to get you back to that point, and that's a way to handle some of the excess materials that someone might have in their contents. A couple other things that you should definitely look into on a homeowner's policy, it would be water backup through sewers and drains. A lot of companies are including that in your policy now, but not all do that. Water backup through sewers and drains, it's almost a question of when, not if, that you might have a claim with something like that as the home matures, as you have trees around it that could have roots growing through the pipes that are underground. If the sewer system, if the water system, if that were to back up in your home, generally it's the lowest point. So a lot of times it's basement. If you're on a slab, it will come in on that main floor. That can do a lot of damage. It needs to be mitigated properly with bringing a restoration company in that is going to eliminate the mold, the mildew, any type of fungus that may have been caused from the water damage. Water can be very deadly in a home from a mold, mildew standpoint. So having proper water backup coverage is certainly a big key. Having identity theft is an important one. You know, we're hearing identity theft happening more and more. We're hearing it from the big corporations, the Target and other banks. It's happened to. So if it's going to happen to them, it can certainly happen to, you know, the little guys like you and I. Having identity theft on your policy is some will include it. It's very inexpensive to add to your policy. But I think what's important about the identity theft, in addition to it giving you coverage if you're held liable for anything, but also it kind of steers you on the path to getting your credit restored, which is almost more important than repaying any liabilities these days, because, you know, people just don't know where to start from in terms of, you know, if your Social Security's been hacked, or you've got, all of a sudden you find out there's 7 credit cards in your name that you never did. This is the companies really help you get back to where you need to be. A third major coverage that is relatively new in the last maybe year to two is what's called underground service line protection. Normally, if there is a damaged pipe that is between your house and the street, that is not something that the insurance company covers, and that is not something that your electric company or your plumbing company or the county is going to cover. This is a relatively new coverage where now any service line servicing your property, be it water, sewer, electric, gas, phone, internet, any of that, a lot of companies now, if there is an actual breakage in one of those pipes, it is now covered in that area between the no man's land in between your actual house and the street. So those are three instances of coverages that have become very important, and I would highly recommend them to be on any policy. And, you know, it's certainly something you'd want to discuss with your agent when you're getting a quote.
So you just listed those three out. Now, you know, if somebody's had their policy for a while, they've had their home for a while, how do they know if they actually have these, you know, new endorsements or whatever on their policy? Because again, if I've been in my house for, you know, 15 years, how do I know that I now have this, since these are fairly new items?
Another great question, Gary. You're on your game today. The best thing would be to review it with your agent. Hopefully everybody has an actual agent that they can go to with questions, or there are proactive agents out there that, as a new endorsement or new coverage comes down the road, they may reach out to their clients to say, hey, this is a new endorsement we have, we can add to your policy. It will cost, you know, whatever, $27 a year. This is the coverage you get. Would you like me to add it? You know, people aren't going to read their policies. I get it. I'm an insurance agent. I don't read my renewal policy. You assume everything's the same as last year. So it does make good sense on renewal. You know, feel free, you know, once a year, once every other year, or twice a year, depending on the situation, reach out to your agent. Say, hey, I would like to go over my policy. Is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything that's come down new? You can be proactive as a client, and as a good professional agent, they're going to want to try to be proactive to reach out to their clients. But, you know, that's just not always feasible as an agency may grow. And so it's always best, when you get the renewal, have a conversation with your agent, see if there's something you're missing, and it builds rapport with the agent. So that way, if there ever is a need, that agent's there. You can call them and get the help you need.
So, what are some of the your clients' biggest fears, and how have you helped them overcome those?
I think some of the biggest fears are, is a claim going to be covered? I think that's the biggest fear among most of us out there. When you buy a homeowner's policy, for example, a State Farm policy looks like an Erie policy, which looks like an Allstate policy. On paper, they all look fairly similar, and it's not until you actually have a claim that you really find out just how good is that piece of paper that is your policy is. So I think that clients are very concerned about what is covered, what is not covered. And you can't go through every single scenario of this is covered, this isn't covered, but you want to make sure that, for example, hurricanes, wind and hail damage is a big issue in the last few years as we've had these various named hurricanes and storms coming through. Some insurance companies have different deductibles for wind and hail or named storm damage. If in your head, your policy says, I have $1,000 deductible, but somewhere in that fine print, it shows wind and hail deductible or named storm deductible of, it could be 3% of your dwelling coverage. Well, homes around here, they could easily be insured for $500,000. So you could be looking at a $2,000, $2,500, even a $3,000 deductible when all of a sudden you thought you were only looking at maybe $1,000. So that's a big key, that the people want to know what is covered, what's not covered. Premiums always a big thing with the client, and I get that. Our job as a professional insurance agent, I want to get you the coverage that you need at the lowest possible cost to do that. So it's not always the cheapest policy that's the best. It's the cheapest policy with the benefits and coverage that you need that makes a difference. It's more, what's the value of my policy versus the cost. And I realize, especially in this day and age, everybody wants to save money, and I get that. But you don't want to save money at the expense of coverage and then find out after the fact that that piece of paper of a policy really wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. So you really want to find out, and again, that's where your agent comes into play. Find out what's covered, find out what's not covered. Is there a way you can save money? Is there a way to cut costs one place and without cutting your coverage? So I think that's the biggest concern with clients, finding the right coverage, but at a cost that they can afford and they're comfortable with.
So, you deal with clients of a large different variety and so forth. What is one of the important things that you've learned so far?
Every client, regardless of whether they're buying that $20,000 bungalow or a McMansion that's $3 million, the needs are still there. The percentages are still there. They are concerned about coverage. They want to know that they're being taken care of. And you have to treat every client here in our agency, we try to treat everybody like their family. You want them to feel like they are a value asset, regardless of what coverage they have, regardless of what kind of vehicles that they drive. We want to make sure everybody is insured properly. Everybody knows we value them as a client and that we're here to service them and their insurance needs, whatever those insurance needs may be. We may talk more coverage if they have more vehicles or more homes, but it's still just as valuable whether you have one home, 3 homes, 1 car, 4 cars, to get the coverage that you need and be protected if you do have a claim.
So you just talked about homes and auto and stuff like that. there's umbrella policies out there. Can you tell us what an umbrella policy is and how does it work?
Of course, I highly recommend umbrellas, and they, they are, I figure that they are a way to help people sleep well at night. That's how I treat them. An umbrella is an additional liability protection, usually sold in $1 million increments. So for example, we would say a $1 million umbrella gives you an additional $1 million of liability protection that would sit over top of your home and your cars, any other rental properties you may have. It is a worldwide coverage, which is kind of nice. When you and the missus take the trip to Ireland and you rent a car, all of a sudden you're driving a vehicle on the wrong side of the road than what you're used to, and the steering wheel's on the wrong side of the car that you're used to. Unfortunately, things happen when you're put in that situation. This umbrella will follow you to Ireland, and it will sit over top of the auto insurance that you would purchase on that rental car. If you have a swimming pool, we highly recommend having an umbrella. A swimming pool is what's called an attractive nuisance. Who doesn't want to go play in a pool? Well, sometimes people that aren't necessarily invited are going to go play in that same pool. Or we could have, we have little Johnny's birthday party and all the friends come over, which is great. That's what pools are for. But if something were to happen, you want to know that there is $1 million liability policy just in case someone slips off a diving board, someone's running on the concrete, or falls off the slide. It's there for that. If you have rental properties, if something were to happen on that rental property, an attorney is going to come in. They're going to sue the renter, but they're also going to come after the property owner. This gives you an extra $1 million of protection to sit over top of your existing liability coverage for those rental properties, just in case your tenants were to do something or have something happen to them when someone's visiting that property. So an umbrella is extremely important. You don't want to lose your house over a claim. You could have a major car accident, unfortunately, and a jury could award a big payout. It's not worth losing your house when you could have an umbrella policy for, give or take $150, $160 a year for an umbrella policy to give you that extra $1 million of protection, which works its way right back around to you can sleep well at night knowing that extra $1 million of liability protection is there to protect you and your family.
So you brought up rental properties. So if I have a homeowner's policy on a rental property that I have, does it work the same way?
It does not. Generally speaking, a homeowner's policy is for the homeowner that lives in the property and owns the property. So it's going to cover the dwelling, the house, the structure itself. It's also going to cover your contents, your belongings that you have in that property. If you have a rental property, you're going to want to get a dwelling policy that will cover the structure of the building itself, probably a limited amount of contents, because unless you're renting the place fully furnished, which is not very popular, but it can happen. You're going to want to make sure you're protected for any damage to the building, the property itself, and then whatever tenant you have in there, you would make sure that they have what's called tenant insurance policy. It's going to cover their belongings, their goods, because that's not your responsibility to cover their belongings, their personal items. And you're also going to make sure they have liability protection on that same dwelling property, on that tenant policy, because that way, if something does happen, like we just talked a couple minutes ago with needing an umbrella, they do have some liability coverage that would kick in before it even gets to you. So it does build a wall of protection between you and the tenant, just in case something happens, because again, you're not there. You're not going to be there. You're trusting your tenants to do what they need to do, which doesn't always always happens. So this way you're protected that way with a dwelling policy.
So are there any special strategies that you use, both short-term and long-term, with your clients?
We try to do reviews as much as we can. And what we will try to do is if someone will call in maybe to add a new vehicle on their policy, we'll take that time to discuss other options that may have come down where they can get some additional coverage. Or we may update them at, you've got an older vehicle, maybe you shouldn't be carrying full comprehensive and collision on that vehicle anymore. Maybe we drop it down to liability only, and we explain the pros and cons of doing that. Obviously, you would save money if you drop coverage, but if you drop coverage, you also lose some of that valuable coverage. So we always try to do reviews anytime a client were to call in to make a change on their policy, ask a question on their policy. That seems to be the best way to talk about it, and we try to be proactive that way versus reactive. I think any good business owner in any industry, whether it's insurance, whether it's accounting, you want to try to stay ahead of the curve. It's easier to help a client before something happens than after the fact.
So can you talk about why it's important having a professional like you helping with my insurance as compared to using an online company?
Sure, be happy to. I think it's a huge key in making sure that you have someone looking out for you as an independent agent. I'm on the side of my client. I'm there to help my client get the coverage that they need. And again, we try to get it at the best possible price. And they don't always know what coverages to ask for. I don't know their industry, whatever, we have doctors, for example, we have dentists. I don't know how to fix teeth. I barely know how to brush my teeth, but we can certainly go to them for our needs, our dental needs. Same thing with a professional insurance agent. You don't do your dentistry online. You don't have heart surgery online. I think having that true professional that you can ask questions, you can get advice, you can get recommendations as far as coverages that you need, and you have someone to go to if there is a claim, if there's a problem with your payments. We've had that a lot with the COVID, unfortunately, this year, where times are tough for people. They've called, and we're able to go to the insurance company on their behalf and try to make arrangements to maybe defer some of the payments or minimize the payments for a couple of months so they're back on their feet. This way, you don't know what you don't know. And as a professional agent, we can point these things out to the clients. Is it a brick home? Is it a frame home? Is it plaster on the inside? Is it drywall? We can help them navigate their needs versus if you go online, it's easy to put lower coverages. You don't always know if you're getting the best coverage. It's a way, you're almost looking at the bottom line from a cost standpoint. And as we've talked a little bit before, the best cost isn't always the lowest cost. And I think this way, having a true professional that you can speak to, you build a rapport with, you can go to, as a claim example, once you call a claim into an insurance company, it's a claim. It's on your record, so to speak. If you call your agent and you can have a 3-hour conversation about the pros and cons of coverage. Is it coverage? What should I do? We'll tell them, hey, go get an estimate ahead of time. You have $1,000 deductible, get an estimate. If the estimate's $800 to be fixed, then there's no reason for you to submit that to a insurance company and have a claim on your record if it's going to be under your deductible amount. If you just deal online directly to it, you're not going to get that advice. You're going to have a wasted claim on your policy And insurance companies look at that. Things are tightening up in the industry that after one or two claims, some insurance companies are getting rid of their clients. So, we try to educate them, and that's what a professional agent can do for their clients.
So what are some of your biggest concerns right now with, COVID-19 and just the way that the industry is going at this point?
Big part of it is the hands-on. We don't get to meet, see our clients, even our new prospects, like we used to. We like to have them come in. Let's review your policies, or if it's a new prospect, bring in whatever policies you have now. We get to meet with them. We get to talk to them. The Zoom like we're doing now certainly helps. It's not quite the same, but we're adapting. Our goal is, we want to keep everybody as safe as we can. Clearly, the COVID-19 pandemic is a concern, but we're doing the best to keep both our employees safe and our clients safe, and trying to help them, be there for them when they can. People aren't using their vehicles as much, so we try to lower their vehicle usage. I mentioned before about some billing issues where, it's getting tough for people to have ends meet. So we're going to the insurance companies and asking, can we defer some payments, or can we lower their minimum, or something to that effect. So I think that, we're doing all we can in this time to try to help our clients, and try to help them, stay open. We have, several commercial clients, and the businesses are certainly being affected. How can we maybe save them some money? And we're reviewing their policies. If they're not doing quite the sales or the travel that they used to, we're doing our best to lower them during this terrible pandemic period as well.
So if somebody wants to get with you, to ask you questions, get quotes and stuff like that, where are you allowed to do business?
We are licensed in Maryland. We're headquartered in Maryland, so we're licensed Maryland, DC, Virginia, and Delaware. Those are the states that we work in, and we're happy to help anybody and everybody in their situations, even if it's just some questions. In other states, we usually have people that we can refer them to find them a good professional agent. If it is a state that we're not licensed in, we're happy to do that as well for people. Again, we really try to help anybody that calls us. As a Lighthouse Insurance agency, we've found over the years, there's a Lighthouse Insurance company in South Carolina. There's one in Illinois. There's one in New York. We'll get their calls sometimes, and we have their 800 numbers handy, so we can refer them if we do find out they're in the wrong. They've called the wrong Lighthouse Insurance company.
So how can somebody reach you, or your agency, if they want to get a quote and they are in the states that you're licensed?
They're welcome to look us up. If they Google Lighthouse Insurance Services, we're located in Gambrills, Maryland. Our website address is relatively easy to remember. It's www.lighthouse, and then a dash, then the word insurance.com. So they're more than welcome to look us up there. They'll find out a little bit about the agency. They can email us from there. They can call us from there. If it's easier for folks just to pick up the phone and call, they are more than welcome to call us at 410-721-6000, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that they may have on their insurance needs.
All right, Mike, I really appreciate your time today. Any parting words, that maybe a question I haven't asked that you wish I would have?
One big one that I will mention, as at least here in my office, I don't know about yours, Gary, but it's raining like crazy right now. So, which brings up the term flood. Flood is not included on a homeowner's policy. Anybody can get flood insurance, but flood is not covered on a homeowner's policy. A lot of people think it's automatically covered. If you are in a high risk flood area, chances are your mortgage company forced you to have it, but you are not required by law to have it if you're not in a more of a highly likely floodplain. Again, a call to one of your professional insurance agent. They can find a quote for you. It's all done through FEMA, and all the rates are the same no matter where you go. But it's something that you should at least consider, especially if you have a basement, if you've got water near you, or you're in a low-lying area. It's something that you may want to consider.
Again, thank you for your time today. We appreciate your words of wisdom for us. Today, our guest has been Mike Thomas with Lighthouse Insurance Services. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate it.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.